Oh, well, this is exciting. Earlier today, we're being told tourists and National Trust rangers saw the legendary fin disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face here at the Giant's Causeway.
Earlier today, tourists and even National Trust rangers stood on the basalt steps of the Giant's Causeway and witnessed something that should exist only in folklore. A section of the rock face appeared to open. Not crack, not erode, open, like a door. For a few seconds, the seamless wall of basalt slid outward, revealing a dark cavity behind it. Then, just as smoothly, the stone sealed itself shut. No debris, no sound, no visible mechanism. And to anyone who hadn't seen it happen, it looked exactly like solid rock again. But one tourist had a drone in the air, and the camera caught everything. The footage showed a slab of basalt, estimated to weigh nearly 20 tons, moving outward like a giant drawer. Behind it was nothing but darkness. 11 seconds later, the stone slid back into place so perfectly that the seam vanished. What started as a strange viral clip quickly became something far more disturbing. Because when researchers scanned that section of rock, they didn't just find a hollow chamber. They found 7 upright figures sealed inside it. 7 forms, standing in formation, trapped in a cavity that should have been solid stone for tens of millions of years. And before the investigation even finished, one of those figures disappeared. The others began to move, and sensors started detecting something impossible in 60-million-year-old basalt: a heartbeat. The first sonar sweep confirmed what the drone footage suggested. Behind the basalt wall was a hollow void roughly 12 meters deep and 8 meters wide. That alone was unusual. Basalt formations rarely preserve large sealed cavities without collapsing. But the real shock was inside the chamber. 7 upright forms stood in a precise line, each over 2 meters tall. They weren't scattered like debris or slumped like skeletons. They stood straight, evenly spaced, facing the sealed entrance. And they radiated heat, not volcanic heat, not residual warmth from rock. The readings matched human body temperature. At first, researchers suspected an equipment error. That was also the assumption of the man who filmed the original footage. Marcus Whelan, a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin, had simply been filming sunset shots of the causeway. His drone drifted near a cliff face, the camera rolling when it recorded the impossible movement. He posted the video online expecting someone to call it a glitch or an optical illusion. Instead, he got a message from a geologist who had spent 15 years studying the Giant's Causeway, Dr. Clara Brennan. She contacted him within hours and told him the footage was either an elaborate hoax or it defied everything she knew about geology. Because according to science, the causeway formed about 60 million years ago during massive volcanic eruptions. Molten basalt cooled and contracted into roughly 40,000 interlocking hexagonal columns. It was one of the most famous geological formations on Earth, but no survey had ever recorded a sealed chamber like the one shown in the drone footage. So, 3 days after the video surfaced, Dr. Brennan arrived at the site with ground-penetrating radar and sonar equipment. She expected to find a minor cavity, or perhaps a fractured pocket in the rock. Instead, she found a room, a sealed chamber, containing upright figures. The measurements were precise. The cavity was stable, enclosed, and deep within the basalt. The 7 forms inside it were between 2.3 and 2.6 meters tall, far larger than any known ancient human population in the region. Their spacing was exact, about 1.4 meters apart, arranged in a perfect line. And then came the detail that made the entire team go silent. Basalt doesn't form around vertical objects unless those objects were already standing when the molten rock cooled around them, which meant those figures weren't placed there later. They were already inside the chamber when the rock solidified around them. Dr. Brennan checked the geological data repeatedly. Based on the formation of the causeway, the figures would have been sealed there between 50 and 60 million years ago, long before humans existed. The next day, geophysicist Dr. Ian Walsh joined the investigation with more advanced scanning equipment. He began the survey calm, skeptical, and methodical. 20 minutes later, he had to put his tablet down because his hands were shaking. The density scans didn't show solid stone figures. They showed hollow shells. Each form appeared to have a thin outer layer with an empty cavity inside, like a husk, like something that once contained a living body. Within 48 hours, authorities were notified. An environmental agency team arrived and quickly tried to contain the situation. Their public statement dismissed the drone footage as a trick of light and shadow. They insisted no chamber existed. But one of their own consultants didn't agree. Dr. Naomi Gallagher reviewed the sonar data in silence. Witnesses said she turned pale, walked away, and resigned the following week. When asked what she'd seen, she gave only one sentence: "I've seen enough." Soon after, that section of the causeway was closed to the public. Officials cited erosion and safety concerns. The area was fenced off and access was restricted. But the investigation continued behind the barriers, and that's when the situation took a darker turn. 4 days after the first scan, Dr. Brennan returned for follow-up imaging. She expected consistency, perhaps small measurement variations, but nothing dramatic. Instead, the new scan showed only 6 figures. She ran the equipment again, then again. She checked calibration, settings, and data logs. Dr. Walsh verified the readings with separate equipment. The result was the same every time. One of the 7 forms was gone, and the stone door had not moved. Marcus had anticipated skepticism. After the initial sighting, he had left a motion-activated camera pointed directly at the rock face. It had been running continuously. The footage showed nothing: no shift, no opening, no surface change at all. The door never moved. Yet one figure inside the sealed chamber had vanished. The remaining 6 were no longer evenly spaced. Their positions had changed. The perfect formation had broken. Gaps varied between just over a meter to nearly 2 meters. They had shifted, slowly, but measurably. It looked as though they were making room, or moving away from something inside the darkness. The missing figure was never found. No fragments, no debris, no evidence of how it could have left a sealed chamber without opening the only visible entrance. A week later, thermal imaging specialist Dr. Ailing Moran arrived to confirm the heat readings. The air temperature hovered around 4 degrees Celsius. The basalt surface was cold and stable, but inside the chamber, her scan registered something that didn't belong in any geological report. 37 degrees Celsius, human body temperature. The heat was localized around the 6 remaining figures. It didn't spread into the surrounding rock. It didn't match any known geothermal pattern. Dr. Moran initially suspected a prank or equipment failure, but the readings held steady. She packed her equipment and left the site early. She didn't answer emails for 3 weeks. When she finally responded, she admitted she wasn't sure she wanted to know what the readings meant, because the rock was radiating the warmth of something alive. Despite growing unease, the team installed long-term vibration and thermal sensors near the sealed entrance. Within weeks, the data became even stranger. The vibration sensors detected rhythmic pulses from inside the rock, a low, repeating thrum. The pattern repeated every 4.7 seconds. It was slow, steady, consistent, like a heartbeat. The thermal readings didn't follow weather patterns or ocean tides. Some days, the temperatures dropped to match the cold basalt. Then, without warning, they spiked. On 3 occasions, readings exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. There was no volcanic activity, no geothermal vents, no known heat source. And then there was the movement. Every 72 hours, long-range scans showed subtle positional changes, millimeters at a time, then centimeters. The 6 hollow figures were slowly shifting closer to the stone door. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough to confirm it was real. Dr. Brennan compiled all the data, thermal spikes, vibration patterns, positional shifts, and submitted a full report to the Geological Board. It was rejected within a week. Officially, they cited calibration errors and unreliable interpretations. Unofficially, a colleague told her the real reason: containment. The board feared the consequences of publishing data, suggesting something beneath the Earth's crust was generating localized gravitational shifts, because the figure's movement coincided with tiny, measurable distortions in gravity. And if the public learned that something under the surface was affecting physical laws, the reaction wouldn't be curiosity. It would be panic. Within a month, funding was cut, equipment was removed. The site was declared geologically unstable. The restricted zone remained sealed behind reinforced fencing, and the researchers were issued strict non-disclosure agreements. But the evidence didn't disappear. Marcus still keeps the drone footage stored on multiple encrypted drives. Dr. Brennan maintains backups of the raw scan data. University archives still contain thermal readings from inside the rock. And above the sealed chamber, life continues. Every year, more than 1 million tourists walk across the hexagonal stones of the Giant's Causeway. They take photos, tell stories about the giant Finn McCool, and laugh as waves crash against the rocks. Few notice the fenced-off section of cliff. Fewer still ask why a natural formation needs reinforced barriers that look more industrial than tourist-friendly. Because just 12 meters beneath that restricted zone, 6 hollow figures remain sealed in darkness. Not statues, not fossils. Biological anomalies radiating heat in a chamber older than humanity. And according to the classified seismic sensors still operating there, those figures are moving, slowly ascending through the bedrock, millimeter by millimeter, as if something deep below is pushing them upward. Among the few who know the truth, the most unsettling theory isn't that the figures are prisoners waiting to escape. It's that they were never prisoners at all. They were a welcoming committee. Because the 7th figure is already gone. Somewhere between scans, it vanished from a sealed chamber without the door ever opening. Maybe the stone shell was only a casing. Maybe it was a chrysalis, and if it truly emerged, it didn't announce itself. It may already be walking among us, wearing a face as ordinary as any tourist. Whatever was sealed inside the cooling magma 60 million years ago is no longer sleeping. And when that stone door opens again, it may not be the only thing that does.